Um, oops, hang on. Hey, Berna. Berna, can you hear us? Nope.
Is this rolling on X right now?
It is.
Yeah. Look at that. That explains the viewers.
Soon. All right.
Berna, you can hear us, though? Berna, can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
Oh, we can hear you now. Awesome.
Okay, I could always hear you. I think you couldn't hear me. There was like a red slash going through my screen when I saw myself. I don't know.
What is? Welcome.
All good now. So we're going to start with Target and then go to the HIMS debate?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. I can't see anybody else. I assume we have Jeff, Russell, and David?
We do.
Good morning, Berna.
Good morning.
Starting with the full screen, so like people who join know to wait, and
Okay.
so that people don't think that's the actual show.
Russell, you're getting the non-caffeinated me today, so
Oh no.
Oh.
I'm trying my best to catch up.
Literally non-caffeinated? Why is that?
No, I'm just getting my first cup of coffee now, so there's no I'm not doing some sort of crazy 78-hour water fast or whatever.
The coffee is the best part of fasting. I'll tell you that right now. Absolute best part of fasting is the coffee.
But St. Jeff,
On day
when
one,
you
you
fast,
wake up.
no black
You
coffee?
keep coffee in the fast or no, Jeff?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Are you
Oh, yeah.
kidding me? That waking up on the second morning and you're kind of starving, but it doesn't hurt anymore, and you have coffee. It is a
Awesome.
amphetamine
No,
like
it's
rush. It's just
Yeah.
yeah. It's
No.
you feel like it. You can
Hold
walk
on.
on water.
When I do the fast, I eliminate everything except for black coffee.
Right. Which is, it just becomes amazing. Yeah, yeah. Before you eat that morning's kind of nice.
Straight bloodstream.
What's the longest
Well-
fast you've ever?
55 hours.
I do a week. I feel like once you get up to speed, once you're not hungry anymore, it's easy to go. It's just the first couple days are the hard part,
Whatever the maximum is you have to do for some sort of procedure is what I would, what is medically necessary. I'm not going to try to undo all this evolution and progress that we've made of having food ready whenever we want it. Our forefathers fought for that right. Don't give that up. Don't look that in the face and spit in that. Come on, be American.
Okay, on that note, I'm going to get us started. We're going to be American and talk about stocks, okay? So, hello and welcome to the Beats Roundtable. I'm Berna Barshay, and today is Wednesday, November 20th. Our group is here and ready to talk the markets and their best investment ideas. So with us today is Jeff Macke. We're going to talk about the big Target news this morning. And then we've got Russell Young and David Maris here to duke it out ahead of the big FDA meeting tomorrow, talking about one of our favorite subjects, HIMS. So let's get started, though, with like the big news of the day. I got to say, I was pretty unpleasantly shocked by Target. I had no position, but had been contemplating one. This was kind of out of left field. I have some thoughts, but Jeff, I know you know this one as well as anybody. What do you think happened here?
This was just a shit show, to be honest. I mean, there are disappointing calls, there are misses, and there's just kind of a company throwing up its hands a little bit and sort of just not really explaining itself. And the latter is obviously the worst of it. Target kind of had a lot of mishmash going on in the quarter. They missed by something like 40 cents, which is hideous. Revenues weren't that terrible. There were aspects of it that weren't a disaster, but home was particularly weak. They cited that. Well, Williams-Sonoma was up 20% today, making all-time highs. That makes Target look a little silly. They said that their clothing and apparel was not great. TJ Maxx was just fine. Walmart was great on discretionary. So you have a combination of the consumer's not great as a tailwind. We knew that already. Target is just, they've kind of lost their way a little bit. They haven't figured out how to make money off their e-commerce. They cited that as a margin headwind, which was surprising. It's Brian Cornell's got some questions to answer before he leaves at the end of next year, and it's a real problem. And they're kind of activist bait at this point. It's been about 4 years. They're making 2 years lows. You can see the dog is not taking it well. I was expressing myself during the call. They filibustered for 45 minutes. There are signs on these calls when a company doesn't have its act together. One of which is when they filibustered through the Q&A, so they only have about 10 minutes left before they take questions. Maybe they were right to do so because they didn't have a lot of good answers, but you got to face the music. And a company that is speaking from sort of confidence, misses happen. They took in inventory early, betting on a robust consumer in the second half to avoid the port strike. Port strike turns out to last about a week, and the consumer didn't show up. So, oops, twice. That's going to be a margin headwind, but man, there are a lot of ways for me to bet on the economy without just going into kind of what has become a second or third rate retailer. They're priced getting towards kind of department store pricing multiples at something like 14 times next year, whatever that's going to be. So it's super cheap, which provides you kind of a floor. Cheap for a reason gets me not excited at all. Not sure what to make of this in terms of what it means for the rest of the consumer. Because like I said, TJ Maxx, twice as big a market cap, and they seem to be okay in apparel. Not great. No one's doing great shakes. But, selective consumer, stock pickers market, this was a pick that, holy crap, I regret seeing them. But it's also the kind of thing that there's going to be a hangover. There's not going to be analysts that defend these guys. And that makes it hard from a, I want to call a bottom here stock First of all, avoid doing that on stocks making active 52-week lows, just as a general rule. But secondly, they didn't provide a good narrative. There's not a story of how they make this come back. They need a flywheel to keep up with Walmart and Costco. They haven't put it in place, and this is what you get. You get a kind of historic whacking.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what I'm really struggling with here is trying to get at the root cause of what's going on, right? Because it's easy to say, okay, Target, one of the biggest retailers, big miss, so therefore the consumer is dead. But, as you said, great numbers out of Williams-Sonoma today, very strong numbers out of Walmart yesterday, respectable numbers out of TJ Maxx. So you have to wonder if this is a merchandising problem and a share loss. And I'm sort of struggling to figure out what happened to them. And the only things that I can think about, because even the traffic number is okay, like 2.4
traffic is really good, right?
Yeah, so their problem is ticket, not traffic, because I think Target, like Walmart was 3 and Target was 2.4. So that doesn't explain the disparity in results. I think the beauty of Target when it's working is you go in for eggs or bacon and you come out with a workout outfit and a little knickknack for your kid.
Right.
That's always been the beauty of it. The merchandising gets you to do that unplanned, spontaneous purchase of extra items. So that's clearly not working for them right now. I know Walmart's been working on their clothes and soft home for a good 20, 30 years. I think that's probably starting to kick in a little bit. I will admit, shamefully admit that for the first time in my entire life, I actually have a new piece of Walmart clothing in my closet that someone sent me to the link to and I bought. And I've never owned anything from, now I sound like obnoxious, but I live in New York. There are no Walmarts near me, so I have to order it online.
Sure.
But Walmart has some great fashion items now, which I can't say was the case even 5 years ago. And Amazon's really sort of executing very well online in fashion on home.
Amazon picking up their game is more of a threat to Target than Walmart. Just because Amazon's starting from almost scratch when it comes to making their own apparel. They've been just absolutely abysmal at it. Walmart's kind of been inching away for a while. But in a decent consumer environment and with the existence of companies like Kohl's out there and kind of an endless number of iterations like it, there's plenty of share to go around. Target doesn't need to be losing share for Walmart to do well. Walmart, on their apparel, they were about kind of, flat-ish and okay with that. They said they gained share. It didn't need to necessarily come from Target. Clearly, some of it did. Target bet that the consumer would be back in bigger size this quarter than before. And again, you combine that with what they paid to get merchandise in because they thought the part strike would last for longer than it did. And that explains the earnings kind of. What they could have done, what would have served them really well in the call would be to sort of itemize that and to tell us exactly what that looked like in terms of these headwinds. They did get their tailwind from shrink, which is even more discouraging. One of the reasons that I was looking at this as a trade in the first place was because you get that tailwind on margins from shrink, and that should be great. Well, they saw that picked up for them just like we thought. The traffic was good, and so they were able to create some buzz. They're not able to close the deal. How do you put that with they said beauty was up 6%? Now that's a really good number in beauty right now. That's kind of it's
that's taking
so
share.
Where the hell's the money going, Target?
Because Ulta's like down. Ulta's down and Sephora is up, I think, low singles. So that would be a share taking kind of number in beauty.
Right. Terrific. And kind of a decent margin little business, and they're putting the stores within a store. That should be working for them. Target's only 20% grocery. So I get that some of the inflation that's being felt out there, Target didn't necessarily get that share back from Walmart because the perceptions prices are lower at Walmart and they have more grocery. But at the same time, they left too many questions unanswered. And now you just have a levered bet on the bleeding edge consumer discretionary market. And man, I can bet on that in a ton of different ways. I don't need to buy this kind of third rate heading towards Colesville type of merchant. I love Target, grew up in Target. We've long talked about that quite a bit. This surprised me. And the disappointing part was that they didn't establish how they're going to get a niche really. Because if you're picking up your traffic, if you're picking up your beauty, they're not getting the sales. They're not able to close the deal. And it makes me wonder if Target has lost their raison d'etre within the customer base. Do people know why they would go to Target anymore? And to what degree can Target do anything about it when their e-commerce was up 8% and they said it was a margin headwind? It's like, holy crap. Maybe you're right not to take questions for more than 5 minutes because you just raised about 10 different questions right there by telling me that a modest e-commerce rise of 8% is actually a margin headwind. That's like just red flags everywhere. You're just jamming them in like my birthday cakes now as I approach freaking 55. It's you got a bonfire of kind of red flags going off all at once. And then it's just like, oh, we got no more time for questions. We'll see you next quarter. It's not going to be upgrade city there in Wall Streetville right now. Again, the valuation's low, so it's not a zero, but it's a disaster, and let's not pretend like it isn't. But at the same time, in terms of a consumer read, the Chewy is making 52-week highs today. Nothing, as we've said a million times, is more discretionary than that incremental dollar you spend to take care of your pet and buy him a nice little ringlet or a little light up Christmas collar for the holidays. So the consumer is not dead. Target's just a little wobbly.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do with the stock here? I know that you've been in this one. Like, do you sell? Do you hold on and wait for
Been in and out.
day?
I was in it for a trade, so I'm going to use the trade certificates as wrapping paper for my holiday gift assortment, and I'm just going to be happy that I'm long the Costco's and the Walmarts of the world. Again, it's Target's got just mission problems. What do you do with the stock here? In terms of it's hard to sell a stock. You don't make a lot of money, but selling stocks making 52-week lows. But then again, there are better places to put capital right now. And so, and with the stock at 52-week lows, now it's all of a sudden just a great tax loss sale. And so what's going to be your catalyst for an upside? I don't know. I don't know if they beat in the fourth quarter, if anyone's any more confident, because they just seem to be sort of the whims of all kinds of different things knock these guys off. I mean, they blame the weather, Berna. They were talking hurricanes. Just holy crap. Did you really just blame a hurricane? That would have been my question on the call. Are you shitting me that you just blame the weather? Because
but Jeff, I have two questions. So Jeff, I have two questions. First, on the gap, is it down today? Do you think just, hey, soft market ahead of earnings, people are afraid given the Target news, or is there a reason to be concerned? And then second, did you say you're actually approaching your 55th birthday again, like the 8th time in a row?
yeah, 55 over and over again. I look like I'm pushing 80. That hurts, man. Jeez, I'm kind of mourning a friend here. I feel like I just drew a little picture of the Target dog hung, and now you're kicking me in the balls about being old. I'm going to stay in my mid 50s for a while. Proud member of Gen X. We brought you grunge and Mike Tyson. It's what was the first question? The
gap. I mean, is Gap
the Gap's
down?
Down
like,
should I be? If you draw a Venn diagram of a Target customer and a Gap customer, you're going to get a pretty good chunk in the center there. And Target is a big seller of clothing, and they said they're having to be more promotional. Now the Gap has been promotional always, ever, and forever. They're promotional today. They were yesterday. They will be tomorrow. So I'm not sure what kind of stick they're seeing with that, but I would take anything Target said with a huge grain of salt because they just missed by 40 cents. So why don't you explain that to me before you talk about your consumer hot takes? I always get a little dubious when retailers talk economics in the first place, let alone companies when they miss this badly. It's like, holy crap, just sell a coffee machine. Stop telling me what you think the macroeconomic world is.
So with Gap down today, would you throw that on as a trade, or are you kind of like, let's see how the Target scared you enough that just stay away from it?
Now, I'm avoiding the whole sector, but I did, say, and I'm sticking with it. We're not seeing a great discretionary tailwind right now. Gap is kind of one of those marginal companies where, it's what I put the trade on, you're kind of all bets are off. There's certainly evidence against it, but it makes Gap is going to be operating different than Target. My takeaway from this call is I give Target less credit for being a bellwether than I did before, meaning what Target says matters to me less about the overall consumer. So you're back to just pure Gap research. But what you don't have is a tailwind from people are buying clothing like crazy. The consumer is absolutely back because it's there's not a ton of evidence for that, even from Walmart, who did pretty well on that side. It's low single digits. It's not going to be great. Expectations are lower from Gap. I like Gap a lot more at 20 than I do Target at 125.
Got it.
Okay, so let's move on from retail to healthcare and consumer healthcare and HIMS, where we've had a raging debate. We've got David Maris has been a bull on HIMS, which is a mail order healthcare company. And Russell has been a bear. And as of right now, David is winning the bet on this stock. But we've got a big day tomorrow with the FDA that's going to be talking about GLP drugs, so your Ozempics and Mounjaros, and that is one of several products that HIMS sells. So
yeah. So what's going to go on?
Ready to get into it, Russell. Tell us what's happening.
No, but why are you explaining it when we should be? So what's going on is, the FDA had removed tirzepatide from the shortage list, and then the compounders came in and sued them and said, wait a minute, you guys are not, looking at the evidence. We're finding shortages everywhere. And then the FDA abandoned their position and said, we're going to come back on November 21st with a joint status report and tell you how we're thinking about this, okay? So tomorrow we're going to hear from the FDA, and they're going to explain why they think tirzepatide should no longer be on the shortage list. It's interesting, when you go to the FDA website, they do explain, they say, just because you can't find a drug does not mean it will be that it should be on the shortage list. They're saying it's cold storage chain. There's many reasons why a drug, it will be off the shortage list. So we'll hear a status report on it. I don't know if we're going to have the court case hearing, but we're going to hear the FDA's opinion. Now, the outsourcers are going to sue and try to block this. But there's going to be a lot of discussion about how long these drugs are going to be in the shortage list. HIMS is out with a big PR campaign where they have a status tracker where they want customers to report where they can't find the drug. So HIMS is making this big PR campaign to say it's still in shortage because we can't find it. And the FDA will be arguing, just because you can't find it doesn't mean it's not in shortage. We might, this is mostly about tirzepatide, but we might hear a statement about semaglutide, which is what HIMS is doing right now. Because Novo said on their last conference call that they're working with the FDA, and they also put forth an argument, and I don't know if we'll hear about this tomorrow, that it should be a drug that's too complicated to compound. So we're going to hear something from the FDA. I believe the FDA will be strengthening their position about why it should not be in shortage. And I'm sure HIMS is going to argue that they can keep on compounding it with customized doses. So that's what we're going to hear tomorrow.
So are we getting testimony, or are we getting a final decision? Like, has the testimony happened behind closed doors, or is this like an open hearing?
Well, we'll get a status report. And so I don't know. I don't think we'll have a hearing tomorrow, but we'll get a status report, and, the game will continue.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
David,
so first, I wouldn't have described it that way. So first of all, and this won't come as a surprise to Russell or anyone else. First of all, it's not a HIMS PR campaign. It's HIMS listening to customers. Should the FDA be beholden to drug companies just telling them when there's a shortage and when there's not? Already, as the new HHS secretary says, we're already too much in the pocket of pharma. Why are we listening to Lilly telling us whether or not patients can get it? We should listen to patients. Now, I hear both sides of that. I agree that one is definitely more favorable for HIMS. But what's going to happen tomorrow? There's going to be two or three things that could happen, right? I think Russell's explained it really well, that there's either going to be kick the can down the road. Hey, listen, it's still in shortage. We'll revisit this in a month or 3 months or 2 months. HIMS, you made a good argument that maybe there is a shortage. They're going to say, you know what, there is no shortage. Then let's just leave it at those are the two options. And then HIMS has a choice. They can say, listen, we don't even make tirzepatide, so who cares? That doesn't matter. We don't compound that. We don't use it. It's, if you go to their website, they don't list it as a product that they offer. So that's like kind of a nothing burger if that happens. It does limit some potential of what they could do in the future. But let's say that they come out and say, yes, semaglutide is difficult to compound, which makes it more difficult. And well, there is this loophole, and it's all they have to do is say, look, we're personalizing this prescription for this patient, and it's clinically necessary. In their last conference call, they said 65%, I think it was 65% of all of their medications are personalized treatments. Now, there's a little bit more paperwork that's involved in that, but I think that HIMS is already positioned to, we're going to keep doing semaglutide for now and forever. Come fight us. That said, we don't even know how much of their how much of their weight loss business is GLP-1s. So I view it as that this is a company that last quarter grew. Let's see here. They grew subscriptions, or they grew revenue 77%, subscribers 44%, to 2 million subscribers. Of that 44% growth, only 4 percentage points, or only 10% of the growth, was from GLP-1s. So those are the things we know. Now, how much of the value is in there? Well, I think the company will do $1 worth of earnings next year without GLP-1s. That's worth 30 times, in my opinion. 30 times for a company that's growing revenue 77%, now turning cash flow positive, turning EPS positive. Those are all things that I'm willing to pay 30 times. I think it's a $30 stock without GLP-1s, but we'll see. I think that this could have a 10, I think, and I'm interested in Russell's view, upside downside case on the two scenarios, that it stays in shortage versus it doesn't. I think you're down, since the stock's been down so much already, you're down maybe another 10% from here, 15% if it's taken off a shortage. And I'd be buying the stock at that point. And you're maybe up 20, 25% if the shortage remains.
Yeah, no, David makes very good points, and I think there's a reason why HIMS is not telling us the GLP numbers, and they disguise it like it's only 4% of our customer base. Well, on the website, if you buy a year's subscription, you get it at a discount. And when you buy a year's subscription, they recognize 6 months of revenues at once, right? And so while the average customer is paying $55, if we're taking a $200 and recognize $200 a month and recognizing 6 months of that, that's a $1,200 contribution to the quarter. And so they can see it's a small number of subscribers, but it's a huge contribution to EBITDA and to revenues. So that's why I think they're playing this hide the GLP number from investors. And it would clear the air if they would just tell us what it is. I mean, I agree with David. The numbers as they look right now appear awesome, and it appears like it's a buy. I think the turd in the punch bowl is a huge part of this is coming from GLP-1s, and if that's taken off the market, the story and the numbers change.
So are you the other products, are they, Russell, the other products like the hair loss products, the ED products, like, are they not sold on 1 year subscriptions, and is the revenue recognition different for those products?
It's sold on a monthly basis. And so that's in, they don't offer you, let's buy a year in advance, right? So you subscribe to it and they ship it to you every 3 months. And so when they ship it to you, they ship it to you in a quarterly.
So there would be revenue recognition on 1 quarter for the other products, but 2 quarters for the GLPs, you're saying?
Or if you subscribe to the GLPs for a full year, they're shipping you 6 months up front. So whereas with the erectile dysfunction stuff, they're shipping 3 months of supply, right? So it's the ASP is much higher, and they're shipping like a double shipment if you subscribe to it. So and the question is about these personalized treatments. Well, then, what this is a slippery slope for the FDA, because if they allow that you can, violate someone's IP and customize a dose, well, why not do this with cancer drugs? Why not do this with every pharmaceutical drug out there and say this is a customized dose? I think in the FDA's statement, when they're looking at tirzepatide, they were saying you can't just knock off and violate people's IP. So, I mean, this is going to force this issue at the FDA, and HIMS is going to be pushing it because it's a big contribution to them. But it's going to be a battle, and let's see how both sides do. I mean, I think there's a reason why HIMS is taking out full page ads in the New York Times, because this is a meaningful business to them.
Well, I think they take out full page. I mean, come on. Okay, I promised myself that with only half a cup of coffee, I'd be calm. So here's a consumer. The reason that Amazon takes out ads at the Super Bowl is because they are going to miss next quarter. I mean, come on. Is it they do it because they're a consumer product company? They're telemedicine company, and they have to get customers. Let's say they're not trying to hide anything. So now, first on the revenue recognition. I'm looking at their Q right now, or their K right now. They say it's recognized at the time the related performance obligation satisfied by transferring the promised product to the customer. The GLP-1s are done on a monthly basis, so I don't think they're booking a whole 6 months once they get that. So I'm going to go back to the company and ask them that. So before I start saying, like, hey, listen, they're recognizing 6 months of or a year's worth of revenue just because they sign on a contract. I don't believe that would be. First, I don't think it's proper accounting. The second is I don't think that's what they're doing. So I'm going to step back from that and say I don't know that. Ask you if you know that or you think that.
I'm going to say I know that. And they even said that if you purchase a year's worth, that they recognize 6 months up front and the rest they put in deferred. And so when you look at the balance sheet, you'll see deferred stepped up to $10 million, suggesting
so
that
it's $10 million out of a $400 million quarter. I don't know. I don't care about that. So that I'll put that to the side. I'm going to check in on that though, because I thought you had said a year's worth, but okay, I'll look to see what that.
They recognize 6 months up front, and then the 6 months for the second half of the year gets put in deferred. In terms of advertising, on the conference call, they were bragging that 20% of their subscriber base are poor people from the lowest zip codes, and they're putting out full page ads in the paper, New York Times. That's not their customer base in the New York Times.
Okay, so I'm just going to explain. I'm going to explain to you why. Let me explain to you why they did that. I would tell you that a top smart person explained to the company that they need to explain to people that they're providing access to healthcare that otherwise wouldn't be available to other people. So part of the 1%, you can go and get the concierge doctor to respond to your call at 5 a.m. or 2 a.m. because that's what you can do. A lot of other people, they're working 2 jobs. They can't go and take the day off and go see their obesity doctor, let alone they don't even know. Listen, I'm super overweight. I don't even know what is an endocrinologist? I can't spell it.
Quick.
So what they're saying is we're providing. So the reason they announced this for the first time is so that you understand they're providing important health care to people that otherwise can't get it. Now you're viewing it as they're now scraping. Your disdain for poor people is very clear. But by saying hey, listen, they're going after poor people. That's not their customer. Their customer is anyone who needs healthcare that they can provide it for.
I mean, you guys, does this not come down to just a legislative thing in terms of it? They're in the business of finding consumers for every type of kind of drug that you don't really want to go to a real doctor for. You don't need to see your medical profession for your hair, for your boner, for your weight loss fat drug, like these kind of marginal drugs. It's not cancer medicine that they're interested in. They're not humanitarians, and it's not a healthcare clinic. It's for guys who just want to get their Propecia without having to pay top dollar, which I have no problem with. But doesn't that just come down to which size, what markets they're going to be able to exploit?
Jeff,
I'm not saying anything bad about that.
I know, but you kind of are. So let me just where I think it's a little wrong is to say, because I think Russell tried to do this the other day. I was like, this is just party drugs, and not hair loss, because we all know that's a serious medical.
I'm not meaning that in a bad way. I'm saying that that's what the company is. They're
erectile dysfunction, serious medical condition, ruins a lot of people's lives. They live in misery.
Tons of sex. It destroys sex.
Yeah. So if you said that someone had that problem, to them it's very, very debilitating. So yes,
right, and they can solve it.
Everyone has made lots
in this easy, convenient way. I'm not saying that's a bad business. I'm saying it's a
good one. No. I know you're not saying that. I just don't want to make light of a medical condition, and Russell did it before.
I'm not going to compare
These
ED to cancer. I'm going to say that if you put an ad in the New York Times because you're trying to convince rich people who otherwise don't consider HIMS to get their blue chew penis drugs. I mean, it's not a complicated thing. It doesn't make them the scum of the earth at all. It's a great thing.
Yeah.
We're sex
So
positive
again, you know,
it's you're selling drugs though. It's a commercial consumer company.
It's an erectile dysfunction drug. We can't call it penis drug. We can call it whatever you want. I agree with you. And your basic premise is, look, they're providing healthcare for things that people don't want to go see a doctor, or they don't really, you know, if you do telemedicine, it's fine. Where it's much more involved, where you have to have lots of tests and you know, CAT scans and the rest, you're not going to use this. You wouldn't probably open your mouth and say, hey, by the way, do I have a cavity? Like those, maybe one day you'll be able to do that, but that's not where it is. So I agree with you with your basic premise that they're providing a niche. Now, this is a legislative thing. And I do think that even if the FDA comes out and says, yeah, no, you know what, there's no shortage and it's difficult to make, they're still going to be selling weight loss drugs. They're going to sell metformin. Like, we don't know that. We don't know how much of their stuff is GLP-1s, what's metformin, what are other drugs that they're using to control weight loss. All I'm saying is, without that, I think they earn $1. I think that's worth 30 times. I remember a couple quarters ago, the stock's up 128% this year. 6 months ago, 9 months ago, Russell said, listen, they're about to miss their quarter. The subscribers are going to drop off. They're going to go negative. Like, these are all things that you said.
Costs were going to be high. I said they were going to beat the quarter, David. I agreed with you. I thought the acquisition costs were going to tick up, and the profitability metrics. I've been above the street as well, right? Because it's about the GLP-1s.
You said subscribers were going to drop off a cliff, and I'll go back if you want me to. I'll go back and
I did not say that. I said the marketing costs.
What's great about Wall Street Beats is we have all the videos. What's great about Wall Street Beats is we have all the videos. I'm going to go back, get the receipts. And because I asked you, I said, oh, when's it going to happen? And you said in 1 to 4 quarters or 1 to 3 quarters. And I immediately said, oh, okay, so they face this imminent problem. It's some amorphous time in the future. Then all of a sudden, when the stock started to do well, you're like, oh, it's the GLP-1s. First, it was the subscriber base. Then it's the GLP-1s. And by the way, if they come out with something else that they're going to start to sell, I'm sure it's going to be that. Now they shouldn't advertise in the New York Times. All right. I guess that's the smoking gun we have. The company's advertising in the New York Times. Everyone call your brokers. That's a sign of trouble.
No, I'm saying that, I mean, you describe this as critical healthcare. Let's be clear that 70% is hair loss and erectile dysfunction and weight loss. This isn't people needing heart medication. Mental health. Right? This is discretionary, stuff. And when I say it's a party drug, in my feed, when I get advertising for HIMS, it's have better sex. It is nothing about
the algorithm knows. The algorithm knows you, Russell. I don't know. The algorithm
knows
you.
Getting caught in this debate is though it's about how many products they can come out with, what's the margin going to be, and if the FDA is going to shut them down. There's always going to be a different hair replacement drug. David, to your point, listen, however seriously you want to take them, erectile dysfunction drugs are not cancer meds. They're a drug that's kind of adjacent to that, and there should be probably less regulation. It should be easier to get them, and you shouldn't have to go through our already congested medical system to do it. This is a company selling consumer-related, consumer-facing drugs. They should be selling them in places where the customer isn't, because they should be tapping into people that have a lot more money to spend on things like this. And again, however you want to characterize them, that's what this type of company is. And so you just have to look at what comes down to me is, where's the growth going to come from? What's the margin? Whether it's fat, drugs, hair, you consider it as an entire pizza pie, you put it into slices.
By the way, they sell depression and anxiety medicines too. So they sell depression and anxiety medicines too. So let's not just put them. Now you're right. They're not selling cancer medicines. They're not doing.
Well,
I would argue they shouldn't sell depression meds.
The point of today is to talk about, what happens tomorrow with
right.
Upside downside to the stock. What is it? What's the upside downside to the stock, Russell? I told you 18 to 30. What's your upside downside?
Tomorrow. Wait, guys. Tomorrow, if it goes into shortage, I want to know how much you think each of you think the stock is down, and if they keep it in shortage, do you think that the stock rallies?
So I already said 15 to 25%. I asked Russell the question. What is it, Russell?
Down. You're saying if it goes
15% down,
Probably,
25% up.
Okay.
I mean,
Russell?
I think it's plus or minus 25% if what they say. But I mean, who knows? This is a very volatile stock, and a lot of these small caps are ripping. I mean, so I think it's
Let me ask
$5.
you guys, so tomorrow, will people be able to get your? Will you react in this live? Tomorrow in our chat. Can people come to wallstreetbeats.com and check out the chat, and will you give us our real time update?
Yeah, go if you have questions, want to talk about it, go to the chat. But I had some other things I want to talk about that are also exciting.
Okay.
It better be very exciting.
Well, it is. It's I listened to the Lemonade Analyst Day, and when you listen to Lemonade and you hear their story, they're telling the Root bull case, and the Root numbers are way more impressive than Lemonade, and it trades at like less than half the valuation of Lemonade. It's so like when you look at the numbers, right? Lemonade's saying we're doing great. They reported revenues of 213 versus 173 last year. Root did 300 versus 115. In terms of profits, Lemonade's still losing $65 million, and Root flips to a profit of $34 million. And Lemonade's saying our bull case is we're getting into telematic-driven car insurance, which is Root's business. Lemonade trades with a $3.2 billion market cap, and Root is sitting here at a 1.6. If anyone's listening to that Lemonade Analyst Day, they should be turning around and buying Root, a company that is executing phenomenally well on car insurance. And that is, I think that is super exciting.
Cool. Well, thanks for the update on that. That does sound like an interesting one. I think we're going to have to end it here. Thanks for joining us today. Just a reminder, programming note, we will not be live on Twitter tomorrow, but we will be back on Friday. If you want to find us tomorrow, please come to wallstreetbeats.com. And there you will also get updates in our chat on all these stocks, including HIMS in the wake of the FDA decision. And you can find transcripts. And David's got one other thing to say.
And if you're suffering from erectile dysfunction or you're a little overweight, feel free to go to HIMS.com.
Our new sponsor.
Oh, Russell, I'm going to
It's a party.
Amazon has great customer service, by the way.
So thanks for joining today.
Let's not turn this into a cockfight.